We've been covering this story in depth.
Unwanted physical contact with a woman at an Overland Park restaurant.
And I must admit, when I first heard of this news,
Jackson Mahomes was released this afternoon.
a part of me was gratified that someone was being held accountable for their actions.
He is facing some very serious felony charges.
But I never expected it to result in this manner.
Overland Park restaurant at the center of the legal case against Jackson Mahomes will be closed until further notice.
I didn't expect this poor woman to make this much of a sacrifice. And unfortunately, because of what went down, he is now out of a job. So before we get to the content, we're giving away $1,000 split between 5 subscribers that turn on their notifications on this channel. We're gonna announce our giveaway winners when the NFL season begins. And now that we got all of that out of the way, work! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Without a doubt, my favorite player in the NFL right now, regardless of what team he's on, is currently Patrick Mahomes. And this is for a myriad of reasons. The first being how dominant he's been on the football field ever since he became the full-time starter for the Kansas City Chiefs. Since entering the NFL, Patrick Mahomes has thrown for 192 touchdowns, 49 interceptions, and 24,000 passing yards. He's won 64 games and lost only 16 in the regular season. He's won MVP twice, and he's won 2 Super Bowls. And he's going into his age 28 season. And when you just watch this young man play football, it's incredible. On the field is one thing. The way Patrick Mahomes handles the spotlight and carries himself off of the field is why I like him so much as a football player. And I think he's genuinely a good role model because of that. He married his high school sweetheart, Brittany, and stood up for her, despite most Kansas City Chiefs fans and football fans turning on her during a particular time where he was posting some annoying content onto social media.
I want to tune in and say all those people that doubted us and hated on us and thought we were going to lose this game. Yes, I did!
And even more recently, when there were reports about Patrick Mahomes being severely underpaid in the NFL, he had this to respond to the situation.
And we try to do whatever is the best for the team, but obviously I want to do the best for myself as well. But at the same time, I've always said I worry about legacy and winning rings more than making money at this moment. I know we keep communication. We see what's going on around the league. But at the same time, I'll never do anything that's going to hurt us from keeping the great players around me. So it's kind of teetering around that line. Do whatever to not hurt other quarterbacks whenever their contracts come up. But you want to kind of keep the bar pushing. And so it's not about being the highest paid guy. It's not about making a ton of money. I've made enough money where I'll be set for the rest of my life. But at the same time, you got to find that line where you're making a good amount of money, but you're still keeping a lot of great players around you so you can win these Super Bowls and you're able to compete in these games.
And more recently, in an interview with Sports Illustrated, Patrick Mahomes had this to say: "I've looked at Tom Brady's model and how he did it. That's it. You want to make money for yourself and for your family. You want to keep pushing the market forward for other quarterbacks, but at the same time, I want these other guys to get paid. I want Chris Jones to be in training camp. I want Travis Kelce to always be making money." Now, historically, NFL quarterbacks never took this route, which makes it very admirable that Patrick would take this route. I mean, Aaron Rodgers could have done it when he was with the Green Bay Packers. He didn't. Ben Roethlisberger could have done it when he was with the Steelers. He didn't. Phillip Rivers could have done it. And I'm not saying these are bad people, but Patrick Mahomes is one of the first to identify this trend and say, hey, if I take pay cuts, then my teammates could eat and we could be competitors year after year after year. And I'll probably be raking in way more sponsorship, which Patrick Mahomes does. And one of his most recent and lucrative deals was a year where he was featured as one of the quarterbacks on Netflix's brand new series, Quarterback, which pretty much followed him for the entirety of last year. And while most quarterbacks would say this is a distraction, Patrick Mahomes had this camera crew following him consistently while he quite literally went into a season following the trading of Tyreek Hill when he had one of his weakest wide receiver cores of his career and won a Super Bowl on one leg. So we all have to admit he's masterful at handling the spotlight. He's very admirable off of the field as well. He's married his high school sweetheart and stood up for her when it was necessary. But someone that doesn't necessarily handle the spotlight as well is none other than Patrick's brother, Jackson. Now, we were first introduced to Jackson Mahomes the moment Patrick Mahomes entered the NFL. He was just this 17-year-old kid that would post cringy dances onto TikTok. And although I felt like these were some interesting and flamboyant dances, if we're being honest, there's really nothing wrong with posting strange and cringy dances onto social media. Yes, I think there's something better you could be doing with your life. There's a skill you could be developing and sharing onto TikTok. But there was a point in time where doing these little dance trends would gain you a following. And I guess that's what Jackson was going for, especially at the age of 17 when you're watching your brother become a superstar in the NFL. I can't necessarily blame him for doing it. Although it's not necessarily the route that I would take, I could understand why he would do that. And at the end of the day, he wasn't really hurting anybody. But it wasn't until a couple years into Patrick Mahomes' career that we really started to see that Jackson Mahomes is truly a horrific human being. Now, the very first incident was him just dumping water on a Baltimore Ravens fan after the Ravens fan provoked him, and you could see the Ravens fan even cheering on the fact that he got a reaction out of Jackson Mahomes. And unfortunately, Patrick actually had to address this.
Obviously, it's something that we don't want to necessarily do. There was things said to him and Brittany that you don't see kind of on the clip. But I mean, he's been good at it, at not trying to respond to that stuff. He takes a lot, and he's usually pretty good at it, and he'll learn from it, and just try to stay away from those people as best he can.
But then Jackson would make mistake after mistake. The next mistake being the fact that he was dancing on Sean Taylor's memorial and posted it onto TikTok. You would even see him forming this dynamic duo with Patrick's wife Brittany, and them doing little TikTok dances in front of Patrick, and Patrick not really being a fan of it. And while some of these moments were annoying, there would be moments that just painted Jackson as a truly horrific human being. And I guess things would slowly escalate. I mean, the next incident would be when he attempted to cancel a Kansas City bar for not serving him quick enough, saying, "Question, Kansas City fiends, who has been to SOT? The service is absolutely terrible and the bartenders are so rude. I would not recommend." SOT would clap back, and the response is very relevant to the news we're bringing you guys today because it indicates the amount of power that Jackson Mahomes has, because he does have the power to end businesses, as you're going to see shortly. It's time to have a talk. Today we are experiencing a lot of activity over social media regarding a recent visit paid to us by an unhappy guest. This person happens to have a lot of followers on social media, and therefore it is something that we cannot ignore. Voice, reach, and influence are power in our case, and with many businesses that are locally owned. The power of a few social media personalities can make or break that business. This grants these people this certain power to affect our livelihoods. There are those who have built their influence by being responsible, informed, positive, and sincere. There are those who have built their followings by being the opposite. That being said, we have some apologies to make. Dear Jackson Mahomes, we are sorry that we set boundaries that you tried to ignore. Oftentimes, people with unearned status and a sense of entitlement think that they are above the rules and will lash out at the employee enforcing them. We are sorry that we could not seat your very large group. As you probably saw, our bar is very small. We are sorry that you have the reach that you do, or at least that you think you do, and that instead of using it for something positive, you decide to use it to try to crush a small business. We survived a global pandemic and will survive your ego. We are sorry you didn't reach out to us first before taking to social media, but then again, that is an expectation that we would have from a mature and rational person, not someone who pours water on fans and dances on the memorials of tragically lost people for TikTok clout. We have not been fortunate enough to be born into a much more talented and much more famous family, but we would like to think that if we did have that much luck, we would use our influence in more responsible ways. We hope our apology finds you well. Eventually, this bar would apologize for what they said, but man, that was a scalding and very true thing to say about Jackson Mahomes, so I don't necessarily blame him. Now, in the end, my personal belief is Patrick Mahomes sat down Brittany and Jackson Mahomes and said,
"Yo, I'm Patrick freaking Mahomes. I'm the face of the NFL. You guys have to get some media training and handle the spotlight a little bit better."
And in Jackson and Brittany's defense, they were great during the 2022 season. We didn't hear much about them. But then it seems like the moment Patrick Mahomes hoisted that Lombardi trophy, Jackson Mahomes made his triumphant return. I mean, immediately after winning the Super Bowl, you saw Jackson Mahomes dancing in the background for TikTok while Patrick Mahomes was giving an interview. And while once again, he's not necessarily hurting anybody, he definitely completely altered the perception around him with his latest incident. He went from being just the annoying little brother of Patrick Mahomes to truly a horrific human being that without a doubt ruined a woman's life, as you're about to see. In the month of May, we covered Jackson Mahomes' arrest. For those of you guys that don't know why he was arrested for SA on the owner of a Kansas City restaurant called Aspen's. And the details of this story are horrible. In this police affidavit, we found out that Jackson grabbed Aspen Vaughn by the throat, forcing her head back, and kissed her and put his tongue in her mouth 3 times without her consent, and then told her not to tell anyone, according to a separate report from the Kansas City Star. Vaughn, who is 40 years old, is the owner of Aspen's restaurant, was the owner of Aspen's restaurant and lounge in Overland Park, and initially accused Jackson of forcibly kissing me out of nowhere in a March interview with the Kansas City Star. And she also provided surveillance video of the alleged assault to the outlet and the police. Now, she wasn't the only one that accused Jackson Mahomes of doing this. A 19-year-old waiter at the restaurant also accused Jackson of shoving him twice and backed Vaughn's claims. Now, listen to how horrible this is. This is something you'd see in like a horror movie. Jackson told her that he needed to speak with her in the office, located in the lower level of the restaurant, and that he closed the door once they were inside. He then grabbed her by the throat, forcing her head back, and kissed her and put his tongue in her mouth, alleging that Jackson repeated the act 2 more times seconds apart. This is all on video. We can't necessarily show you the full video because every time we do, YouTube hits us with demonetization, and I just want this video to get out there because I feel like this is important information because this woman's life was quite literally ruined. So I'm gonna post the whole video onto my Instagram story if you guys want to go check it out, or on my Twitter if you guys want to go check it out. Now, the alleged victim struggled with the defendant and pulled his hand off of her waist and pushed him away. When Jackson left the office, Vaughn showed 2 servers whom she claimed did not hear her when she called out for help. Her neck, which had fresh signs of injury, according to the affidavit. It gets way worse because the way Jackson did this was there's pretty much 2 levels of the restaurant, and his game plan was,
I'm gonna lure her to the bottom half of the restaurant while everyone else is in the top half of the restaurant so no one could hear her when she's screaming.
that's how horrible this is, okay? Now, this is where it gets bizarre. Jackson returned to the office trying to explain what he could do for her business, which noted that Jackson has a huge social media following. Bro, I hate influencers that do this crap. I hate content creators that do this crap.
Do you know how many followers I have on TikTok? I could blow this business up with a single story.
By the way, I personally always thought it was cringy, but the fact that this is what Jackson leaned on was insane. Jackson was reportedly angry when he and his group of friends were eventually told to leave the restaurant. Additionally, in the redacted affidavit, the waiter, who chose not to be identified, spoke with the police on the night of the incident and said he had gone to the office on the lower level of the restaurant to retrieve his water bottle. The waiter entered the code and was barely through the door when Jackson allegedly pushed his chest and told him not to come in, according to the affidavit, which states the waiter then told Jackson he was an employee and needed his water bottle. That's when Jackson allegedly pushed the waiter a second time and told him to get out.
It's like, bro, can you please not cockblock me here? I'm trying to assault your boss.
Now, this story gets even more bizarre. Jackson later attempted to apologize, but told the waiter that he should not have to tell him twice to leave a room, and that if he's in a room in the restaurant, it is off limits. Jackson's poor lawyer, bro. His attorney, like, I feel so bad because he's quite literally caught in 4K doing this. There's surveillance footage of him doing this, saying that Jackson has done nothing wrong. Our investigation has revealed substantial evidence refuting the claims of Jackson's accuser, including the statements of several witnesses. Now, Jackson Mahomes would get out on a $100,000 bond, and we would get delivered this gem of footage upon his release. Watch till the end.
Right now. Keep pushing, keep walking.
Anything you want to say to the victims of these crimes?
You know, if you was a real black dude, they would arrest you a long time ago.
So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, Mike, we know this story. Why are you bringing us a history lesson on Jackson Mahomes? Well, we got a horrible update on this situation, and it's very indicative of the amount of power that this truly spoiled and petulant child has in his possession. Aspen Vaughn recently said that business has declined mightily ever since the incident, saying 2 days before Jackson Mahomes is scheduled to return to a Johnson County courtroom, the woman making some of the claims against him says she wouldn't have called the police the night of the alleged assault. During an interview with Fox 4's Malik Jackson, Aspen Vaughn, the owner of Aspen Restaurant and Lounge, describes the months since the February 25 incident as exhausting and just wants to go back to normal. What happened that evening, we don't condone it. It wasn't okay. But in the same aspect, we have our lives to live and to go on. And I feel like a lot of people just made assumptions and came after us. Vaughn said she hoped everything associated with the case would blow over, but that hasn't happened. happened. Instead, she said people have targeted her and the restaurant. Aspen has lost up to 75% of its business since the Johnson County District Attorney charged Jackson Mahomes. We've had gas pipes cut. We've had AC pipes cut from the outside. You know, you name it, and it's pretty much happened. Now, months later, Aspen's owner said she believes the situation has been blown out of proportion. When asked if she would have called the police herself that evening, she added the following: "No, I would not. I don't think it was necessary," said Jennifer Thomas, the manager at Aspen's at the night of the incident. Jackson's lawyer decided to withhold further comment, but things would get way worse, because just a few days ago she would say we were so close to making it, then this whole thing happened. And the reason she's saying that is because Aspen Vaughn had no choice but to shut down her restaurant. This is because negativity from the public has affected her business. So this whole scenario has essentially ended this woman's restaurant. And all in all, this just isn't a good look in general. Jackson is quite literally on video allegedly committing an act. This woman definitely was within her rights to call the police. And as a result of calling the police, I guess since people want to stand up for Jackson Mahomes, this restaurant was boycotted and her small business officially went under. It's a really unfortunate end to the story, but it just goes to show how much power even an influencer like Jackson Mahomes has. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this unfortunate update, man. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.